everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Self-Published Success, a show that highlights forward-thinking authors who chose self-publishing over traditional and found success in doing so. My name is John Feldman, founder of Visionary Literary and your host for today's show. Our guest today is Dr. Kevin Gazzara. Kevin is the senior partner of Magna Leadership Solutions, a public speaker, an executive coach, and the co-author of the acclaimed books, The Leader of Oz and Ready, Set, Get Hired. He left a 30-year corporate career to pursue his passion and used his book as a launchpad to do so. And today he's here to tell you how he did it and how you can do it too. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, John. I hope to give your listeners some really good practical tips for if they're considering launching their book.
I am sure you will. And as we will see as we get deeper into this conversation, you have a wealth of experience and you got started self-publishing very early on and you continue to stick with it, which is something I'm very excited to talk about. You obviously see the benefits in it. So let's just start off by, again, my bio was very short for you there. You have a much longer career, many more accolades, but can you tell us just a little bit more about you, who you are, and what led you to eventually want to write these books?
Yeah, well, originally born and raised in the Philadelphia area, did all my undergraduate graduate work there, and then eventually did all my doctoral work out when I moved to Phoenix. And as you had mentioned, spent 30 years in the corporate world, the last 18 years at Intel, and I had lots of different positions there. You know, I was a product manager, a general manager. I managed Intel University. The last probably 8 to 10 years that I was there, I managed Intel's management and leadership development programs for the world. And it was very exciting. We used to do the first and middle level managers. We used to train 2,500 managers and leaders each year in 10 different countries.
Wow.
So when I retired from Intel in 2007, and I took two of my colleagues with me, Dr. Ali Lakhani and Marlene Lundy, to start our firm, which was always a little scary to kind of leave that comfort zone.
Yes.
Intel had just finished training their 40,000th manager. So those programs I was running, I got pretty good at. That was my passion. And all of my colleagues that were consultants at the time, the common theme was that you needed a whole series of different elements to leave the corporate world. And one of the elements was that you needed what they told us as a hard copy book. So that was one of the things that we had in our to-do list, and that's kind of what drove us to write our first book, The Leader of Oz, and probably one of the best things I'd ever done. And it was the difference, particularly dealing with chief executive officers, CEOs, presidents of companies, having that ability to hand someone a hard copy book that's well written, of course, has good content, not just a piece of crap.
Right.
That was critical for our success and really help build the company and get our message out. You know, because the book is really, you know, how do you create these super high performing teams in a way that's both hard driving and at the same point in time very human.
Well, I love that. And I love how much the book actually meant to the growth of the company at the onset. So like you said, handing that physical book to someone just kind of, it demonstrates a level of not only authority immediately, but I guess like persistence, determination. So you went through, it's not easy to write an entire book, to put down all your thoughts. And like you were saying, to write a good book, it's not easy to do so. So it just shows others that you hand that book to that you were determined to make that happen.
Yeah, it was certainly a labor of love. I co-wrote it with my my partner, Dr. Ali Lakhani. I think there's 21, 23 chapters in the book. They're all short. You know, it's set up so you could read it on an airplane type of thing. And I think one of the things that it did, which I would, you know, encourage the listeners to think about, is it really helped us crystallize and clarify and condense our message right? And all the different things how do you put a book together that describes your entire leadership philosophy,
Yeah.
start to finish? And this forced us to do it, right? And we had a wonderful editor that came in after the fact to look at what we had written, and she was fantastic. I just remember the one call. It's like, yeah, this chapter is 12 pages long, and it needs to be 7, and you need to get it, get the 4 pages of stuff out of there without losing any content. So those are probably some of the biggest challenges, and if you have a good editor, uh,
Yes.
it makes a world of difference.
It really, really does. It can really like that's a big task to ask you to cut down the word count in half, the page
Yeah.
count in half without losing anything major. But yeah, a good editor can really make or break your book. So speaking of your one of your books, Ready, Set, Get Hired. Um, right now, as we record this, it's February 2023. There are a bunch of tech layoffs that have been happening the past couple of months. So obviously, before we get into your corporate career and self-publishing, I would like to hear your take on what some of the listeners can do. 98% of authors are not full-time authors. We still need other jobs, other careers. So I'd like to hear your input on what heading into what seems like might be a recession and kind of low job availability. What would your insight be?
Well, I would say read the book, right? And I'm
Good
not
first step.
pushing, I'm not pushing the book like to make that money of whatever they send you, for $5 from Amazon. That's not the point. The point is we wrote the book in particular because we really wanted to help people. We wrote the book 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. When the pandemic hit, and
Yeah.
there were a lot of people that were losing positions and needed to find positions and so forth. So I wrote it. Actually, it was written by Rita Creasy Reed, and Rita was one of my students when I was teaching at ASU. I've been a professor at like 6 different universities, and many of my students, fortunately, stay in touch with me. And when she got downsized, she contacted me. She said, "Hey, I know you're a good source for this," and I said, "Well, we have a process that we use." To get clients, right, for using some scripting through LinkedIn, I bet you that would work for you to get a job. And I will coach you through this under one condition, that when you land your awesome job,
Mhm.
that you write the book, and I'll work with you on that. And that way, I'm not going to charge you for any consulting time. And she said, "Great." She wrote the book. I gave her, we did it together. I gave her primary billing on it. So it says with Dr. Kevin Gazzara. She wanted to to list me as and I thought, Rita, you did most of the work. I want to be fair. So it's with me rather than just and at a very high level, what it is an approach that we found to bring on new clients that allows you to go mine LinkedIn to find the people that would be potentially people that would hire you. And it's not a selling program. It's really an engagement methodology. And what I asked Rita to do, as I said, put all of our scripts in there. It's got 100% of the scripts. So with those are like, don't know where to start or what I should write or what I shouldn't write. It's very, very prescriptive rather than most of the books, which are descriptive. So do these 5 steps and so forth. You can do it manually. There's some automated tools that you can use. So the basic idea is the way we use it is that you identify um, clients that you want to have a dialogue with, right? Not to call them and say, "Hey, I'm out of work and I want to get hired." It's like, show us the companies that you want to work with. Show us the positions that you are really interested in. Show us where you can bring your expertise to help them, and then figure out what's their biggest challenge. So a lot of people have challenge with hiring or retaining or maybe you're a supply chain manager, and the biggest challenge there is managing different sources of supplies, or changing them from one continent to another, whatever it is that you say, hey, I'm going to write an article, and you send it off to the people in LinkedIn. First, you get you find the right people, and you say, I am writing an article, and then you just fill it in, right? I am a supply chain manager that's looking at the challenges for moving supply chain from Asia back to the US, and you are an expert in this area. I'm writing an article on this that will be published on April 1st, and I'd like to get you as an expert. Would you be available for a 15-minute conversation, a Zoom conversation? And you send that out, and surprisingly enough, we had about a 30% hit rate, which is very, very unusual. We've tried LinkedIn before, trying to just
Yeah.
get business. It's somewhat difficult. So what we would do is we'd interview them with the one or two questions you have, so you can get a good snippet in there. We would put them into the article, as an expert, to kind of make them famous. And then we have published the article, and of course they're going to send it to they're going to do the marketing for you. So that's really kind of the crux of it. I
Yeah.
think one of the things that was really valuable to us is when we would, book them for that 15-minute conversation on Zoom.
Mm.
What we would do is you'd take up 10 minutes, and then the last 5 minutes or so, you would want to say, okay, is there anything that I can just give you? What are the challenges that you have? We have a lot of articles and books, and I have lots of big connectivity in my network. What can I just give you? And typically, most of the clients or the people that we had that were potential clients or potentially hiring, they would just kind of do this massive dump for us. So, like, here's all the things we're challenged with, and this doesn't work, and so forth. And if you just listen, you usually can make a contact. I know somebody that's in that. Can I connect you to? Or I wrote an article on this, or I just read this book, or have you tried this approach? And it was just becoming a resource for them. And then eventually, what Rita found out was, over time, because they were doing advertising for her, it was raising her levels of people finding her in the Google search. And then ultimately, the company contacted her, and she got this awesome job. She had to move out of state from Texas to Utah. But the last time I talked to her, she was still relatively happy. So that's really the foundational level, and have all the gory details in the book of how to do it. It's very, very easy to do. And as you know, John, if you're not a great writer, you can work with companies like yourself to get a ghostwriter to help you write the articles for you, right? So, and we've done that. We've worked with, sometimes, many times we write the stuff on our own. Many times we have a couple ghostwriters that we like to work with that will get us started, and then we'll finish it off. So,
Yeah.
lots and lots of ways to do that. And I think for the people that stay on the podcast, right? I'm going to give you a link to get, quote, a reviewer's copy of Ready, Set, Get Hired for free. So
I love it.
we'll give it away, and you can save that, whatever. I don't forget what they sell it on Amazon, $7.99. You'll be able to get it from us for nothing.
Well, I love that. And at the end, we'll make sure that we bring that up, and then that link will be in the show notes. But one thing that really stuck out to me, of course, thinking of writing all the time in books, is when you say to reach out to someone who is an expert, right? I'm writing this article that's going to go on LinkedIn. You're obviously an expert. And I would love to get your opinion. And then, any SEO experts out there listening know that there are good backlink strategies to that. But when it comes to just writing a book, you can say, hey, like, I'm writing a book, I'm reaching out to, 7 or 8 different people that are experts in their field and in the industry. You are, I thought of you when I wrote this article because of X, Y, and there are just different ways, again, that you can incorporate like other people's stories into your book, which helps, like you were saying too, they're going to promote it because they're inside the book. There are many different there are many different advantages to doing that, especially with the book. But happy to hear that a lot there. And for anyone that's listening, Ready, Set, Get Hired will be in the show description. Really excited for that because of what's coming down the pipeline here. But so I want to ask you a question about writing the leadership book, right? The Leaders of Oz, and how it has, before it's impacted your career. You had a 30-year corporate career,
Right.
right? So I want to ask you about self-publishing in 2008, but first I want to ask you about something else that was scary, which is leaving a 30-year corporate career. That is very, I mean, it had to be scary, and that was at a time before the solopreneur fad was trending. So tell us about that process, about your mentality. What was that like?
Uh, well, it wasn't as scary as you might have thought because I had a 10-year plan, right? So,
Good.
when I was 40, I had a goal that I wanted to retire at 50. I actually retired at 51 and waited an extra year um, for just because I was still having a lot of fun and we were right in the middle of launching a new program and so forth. Um, but I had a great mentor. I've had great mentors. I've had great coaches all throughout my career, and I had a wonderful mentor and coach at Intel. Wonderful woman by the name of Cecilia, and Cecilia was the director for HR for Intel. And I sought her out, and I asked her if she would be my mentor at the time, which was back in the oh God, in the 90s. And Intel didn't have a formal mentoring program. I had done a lot of reading and research and so forth, and recognized that was important. So I created this 10-year plan, and I said to Cecilia, I want to retire, or I want to leave the corporate world and give back to small organizations. We typically work with small to medium-sized organizations to help set up leading leadership programs for them, like our Leading Forward Academy. For people that don't have $10 million budgets,
Right.
like Intel would have, to be able to do it, get that $10 million value without spending the $10 million. So we put a 10-year plan together. At the time, I was a product manager, doing the typical corporate types of things, where you move from individual contributor to first line manager to middle manager, and up the chain. And that looked like that was going to be my career. And then in the early 90s, what I found was that I really loved teaching. And one of the requirements at Intel was that you did 40 hours of teaching within the company once you hit a certain grade level in
Oh,
management. So I found out I loved doing that. And then Cecilia said, "Hey, if you love doing that, why don't we think about what you would want to do when you retired?" So I said, "Well, I'd like to be a professor." So I've been a professor at 6 different universities. I've taught undergrad, grad, mostly in the doctoral level. After I did my doctorate at the end of in 2000, and one of the things that I recognized was that was my passion, right? So I just had to figure out, how do you make money at doing that? So you
yeah.
have you have your 401k and your health care and your daily routine. You come in and they write you a nice paycheck every 2 weeks or every month, whatever it is. But the thing that you need to put in place is you need to put a whole series of things in place. And one of the things was you had to have a good financial plan, right?
Yeah.
So I had basically 10 years. I've had a wonderful financial planner for 30 years now. Um, and I sat down with him. We put the plan together, Cecilia and I. We said, how much money do you need? By what period of time? So, it's not rocket science. You have to save this much. So rather than buying the new fancy cars every couple of years when the bonuses came out, or getting the bigger house, or doing the trips to Tahiti instead of to the California coast, you just do things that are relatively smart. And the magic of compound interest works, right? So I was able to put a plan together, and when I hit 50, my financial planner said, happy birthday, and by the way, any point in time you want to just check out, where you're not having fun anymore, you can do that. And we can our investments can we can start, a weekly or monthly pay, can start pulling out that interest that you're earning in the investments as a salary. So we did that. Fortunately, because we wrote the book so quickly, I didn't have to pull very much money out initially, and since I was a professor as well, I had enough classes going on that it paid for the mortgage and car payments and insurance and electricity and so forth. So it wasn't as scary, but one of the things I tell people is that if you're really going to break out on your own, you want to make sure, one, you have the financial capability to do that, and not only are you bought into it, but your significant other,
Yeah.
family, friends, kids, and everything else are. I'm coaching somebody right now that didn't do that when they left the corporate world with an idea that they had a very short window to be successful, and if they could do that, everything would be fine. So they had enough money for a very short window.
Mm.
You really need enough money, and many of my friends have told me this. The most successful consultants is you need enough money for 18 to 24 months. You need to assume that you're not going to make any money at all, and that whatever money you make is just a windfall, because that is the window where most of the consultancy or entrepreneurs go back into the corporate world, or back into an 8 to 5 kind of job. So make sure you have enough money, because once you stop worrying about that, many of the people that have had had a couple months, right? They spend all their time worrying about, well, it's month one, it's month two, it's month three, I'm getting
Yeah.
close month four, and they can't focus on the business. And when you're doing bigger ticket items, we're not selling trinket kind of things. Most of the programs are, thousands of dollars.
Right.
You need to have that. You need to have that runway. You just have to have it.
Yeah. And that's important too, because many, like you're saying, some of the high ticket coaching, consulting, a lot of that's kind of where the trend is heading now. Like there are a lot of coaches, a lot of consultants, and everyone wants to get out of the 9 to 5 so they can speak and be a coach and a consultant. But
Yeah,
like you said, there's so much competition out there. So if you're like, on a whim, that's it. I saw something on some awesome motivational quote on Twitter, and I'm that's it. I'm quitting my job. I'm putting in my 2 weeks, and I'm heading out. You might be in for a rough ride if you have to crawl back to your old boss's desk 2 months later. So having a plan is very important. So I want to ask you now about your plan, your book, right? Since you
sure.
said it was so short, to the process to write that was very short, which helped to drive some exposure to the business. So in 2008, you decided to self-publish this book. Now
Yeah.
in 2023, self-publishing is huge, right? It's been huge for the past couple of years, but in 2008, it was still very new. So tell us a little bit about why you decided to take this self-publishing route back then.
Well, we were essentially forced into it. We took a speaking gig when we first started the company in 2007. In 2008, beginning of 2008, we took a gig at one of the big corporate events in Las Vegas, and we promised them we would have our book done by then. So we had 6 months. So I think that's the first thing I'll tell anyone is get a deadline, that somebody is really going to hold you to the deadline,
Yeah.
and you will get the project done, right?
Yep.
So we had 6 months. We had, so we kind of figured the project plan out. And then what we did is we did some early on investigation with publishing companies, and most of our friends that had, and colleagues that had done books, all told us the same thing. They were unhappy with the publishing companies, right? They said, they really don't do the promotion.
Yeah.
It's somewhat costly. They may be able to get an advance, you might not, but ultimately it's still up to you to basically do the work.
Yeah.
So that was a little bit of a deterrent, but the big deterrent was we met with several publishing companies, and we pitched the idea of the Leader of Oz. All of them liked it. They thought, yeah, this is pretty unique. No one had done this. It's basically a story of this company in Kansas that gets whisked away and dropped into Silicon Valley, and you have the wicked VPs from the east and the wicked VP from the west. So it was just fun, totally fun to write. And they said, yeah, well, we can do this, and if everything goes well, You know, 12 to 18 months, we'll be able to have a book for you. And we said, no, well, we got a commitment that we made, and we have to get it done in 6 months. And they said, oh, no, no, we can't do that.
Yeah.
So we were forced into self-publishing. Fortunately, Marlene Lundy, who did all the layout of the book for us and the cover design, and she really did all of the heavy duty tactical work for us. Did all the investigations on lots and lots of different companies, and we ended up with going with Lightning Source, and they've been wonderful. If anybody's looking at really doing self-publishing beyond Amazon, um, I would highly recommend them. Wonderful company to deal with. And one of the reasons that we liked them was not only would they do electronic publishing, they also had a printing arm of their publishing firm, and that was really big, because one of the things that you'll find is it's incredibly inexpensive, or you can pretty much publish your book on Kindle for nothing. It's there's many ways that you can publish and get your book printed. The problem is with the print on demand, it's so expensive.
Yeah.
You know, our book, just to give you an idea, I think print on demand is like $8 or $9 per copy, and we use that when I do my keynote speaking. Right,
Yeah.
that's one of the requirements when I book a keynote. You know, whatever it is, 2, 3, 4, 500 people, that they buy a copy of the book to give out to the
Smart.
participants. You know, and if you have, you know, 100 people and you have to spend $8 per book, and you have that come out of your pocket, it makes a little bit of a difference. If you
Yeah.
do it with a company like Lightning Source, I think it costs us, you know, $2.30 or whatever. So it's like a $5 or $6 difference. And of course, you have to order a little bit more quantities. You know, I've got still have, you know, we usually get them in quantities about 1,500 at a time.
Yeah.
And so that's another thing to consider if you're considering doing that. And then the last thing I'll mention, John, for those of the viewers that are our listeners, is that last year we decided to put this on Audible. You know, so
Yes.
we hired a voiceover artist out of Chicago. She was absolutely awesome. Did a lot of screening. We used Upwork to do the screening to get her. Um, she did a fantastic job, and we released that. It's about a 3-hour audiobook on Audible, and that has done really well as well. Yeah, so we have, you get the hard copy, and get the Kindle, and get
Yeah.
the audiobook.
So that's excellent too. Another, audiobooks you can self-publish now, and they come out just as great as, some of what Penguin Random House would put out. So congrats on doing that again, especially even though it's been 14 years after you initially published the book, you're still staying on top of it. The audiobook is coming out. So good things. Love that you have all the different formats, because that does drive a level of professionalism toward your title. So the hardcover you mentioned, just printing this, and like you said, the keynote speaking. Um, how is the book, the hardcover book, right? How is having a physical book helped your business, and maybe helped you to get on stages to get those keynote speaking gigs?
Yeah, so one of my good friends, and I would say a mentor, was a gentleman by the name of Bill Daniels, and Bill wrote several books. One called Breakthrough Performance, which is wonderful, and then several of the other colleagues that were also consultants also said the same thing. You have to have the heart. You have to have. There's something about holding a hardcover book
Yeah.
that when you meet with someone, particularly at a conference, and you can hand
Yes.
them whether you're speaking or you're at the conference, where you can hand them a copy, you know, a dedicated or a signed copy of your book to them. Whether they read it or not, it's a completely different aura, right? Like, it says,
Yeah.
"Hey, this person is legit." Right? And what we've told them is, hey, read the book, take you a couple hours. You know, if you're flying back to New York from California, you'll be able to read it on the plane.
Yeah.
And if you like the model, this is our model of how you build great teams and great leaders. Then we're a good company to talk to. And if it feels like this is a completely massive culture shift away from what my vision is, then you got a free book, right? You can stick it on Yeah, stick it on your shelf or give it to somebody else or sell it on Amazon for $1.50. We don't care, right? So that's it. But having that just tactile, being able to touch it and feel it, and see that it's really substantive, um, I think is important. So
Yep.
it tells a story. It's done in a fun way. And at the end of each of the chapters, we have what we call marvelous leadership secrets, and you check them off, of things that you do and that you don't do. And at the end of the book, you fill it into a chart. And what it will tell you is it'll tell you, as a leader, do you lead more like Dorothy or the Tin Man or Cowardly Lion or the Scarecrow?
I
So
love that.
it's fun. Has some good science to it. Like I said, it really does make a difference. That I think most people don't recognize how easy it is to write a book or to get it published. Right?
Yeah.
They still think, particularly people in my generation, baby boomers, you're thinking about what it was like, 30 years ago, and they don't
Right.
even recognize how simple and straightforward it is today.
Right. It's so much more accessible.
Y-
But like you were saying at the conference, so imagine you're at a conference, every single person there has a business card. But if you have a book, that again, you stand out because when you leave conferences, you leave with a stack of business cards that after a week, you're like, okay, I'm not going to do anything with these. They sit and collect dust or they go in the recycling bin. But if you have a book, like you said, even if the person reads it on their flight home and they take nothing, they're like, this isn't really for me. It sits on their bookshelf, or they give it to someone who maybe would be a better fit for you and your strategy. So there's just so much more there to a book. And with the accessibility now today that self-publishing offers, you just writing and publishing a book allows you to stand out from the crowd. So love hearing everything that you've done with it and that it's still continuing to have benefits for you. So
we wrote the book as an evergreen book, right? So it wouldn't
yeah,
be time dependent, right?
yep,
So we wanted to get lots of years out of it. And like I said, once you kind of have your philosophy, that's really not gonna change.
yeah. And that's important too, the evergreen aspect of it. Obviously, you wrote it well because even now, 14, 15 years later, it's still proving valuable. So Kevin, what is next for you and for your company? Another book? What's coming down the pipeline for you?
Well, so we've shifted. We're shifting our balance. So originally, when we first started Magna Leadership Solutions back in 2007, it was much more about kind of one day, workshops on, conflict or communication or leadership or management or critical thinking. We have a whole suite, about 15. If anyone goes to magnaleadership.com, you can just see all the different workshops that we've done. And then about 5 to 7 years ago, we put together what we call the Leading Forward Academy, and it's really the 5 to 7 different workshops that we do over and over and over again that seem to have the most impact. And we've integrated that into an academy, and so we've moved to doing more 6 to 9 month programs for companies rather than one and dones, right? Just because you can't get the learning to stick. So that's been one of the shifts. The other shift is that we've gone off and I've gotten certified on my ICF certification for executive coaching. I went and did positive intelligence. If anyone hasn't heard of positive intelligence, I highly recommend go do some Google searches on that. I got certified to teach positive intelligence, and we run a positive intelligence program about every 6 weeks for groups of 4 to 6 people. We're doing a big company right now up in Minneapolis with their executive staff. So we've been shifting from kind of the one and done to more of the process and the programs, and executive coaching, and keynote speaking.
Oh, that's good. I love the Leading Forward Academy. So anybody who's listening who is, an aspiring nonfiction author, maybe you're a business person and you have a small team or medium-sized team. So obviously we were saying at the opening of this, there are a lot of tech layoffs, a lot of layoffs, but we're also in the age where to be a solopreneur, to go out on your own is very enticing for people. So if you are not leading with a sense of purpose, and if you're not really energizing your team and giving them this desire to be there, they could easily up and leave. So leadership and culture is so important today if you're going to start a company and try to run a company that will survive. So if you are, again, if you're listening, this Leadership Academy, Leading Forward, so many different things. Obviously, Kevin has a long career in leadership, in teaching. So the go-to voice, if you need. So Kevin, if listeners want to come to you, want to find you, obviously I'll put the books inside the show notes, but where else can they find you and work with you?
Well, feel free to contact me, directly. You can send me an email, Kevin at Magna, Magna leadership.com, all one word. I'd be glad to talk to you. My promise is you get no sales pitch from me, right? So we have plenty of work. We're pretty much booked up for most of this year. You can find us at magnaleadership.com. The one thing that I'll tell your listeners, John, is that we publish on quite extensively on social media. The first 30 to 45 minutes every morning, I do all my research, and I will publish articles, whether they're our own or ones that we've read and we say are good, to YouTube. So if you go to YouTube, if you just do Magna Leadership on YouTube, you can go to Facebook. We have a Facebook group, Magna Leadership as well. We have a LinkedIn group, for Magna Leadership. And then if you want to follow me on Twitter, I think I just hit like 53,000 followers on Twitter.
I saw that.
If that's your choice, it's at Dr. Kevin, DoctorKevin, at Dr. Kevin. And we publish a lot on all of those simultaneously. So pick the one that works best for you, and you'll get a great article. We usually do 2 to 3 a day. You'll get a great article or a tool or a reference for management, leadership, conflict, communication, critical thinking, things that are important for leaders.
Yes.
So lots and lots of ways to find us.
Very important. And I love that you publish to all these different channels. So it's whatever's best for the user, for the listener. One last question is that link where people can get your book. What is that link?
Yeah, so I've created this link for your viewers. They can get what we'll call a reviewer's copy. So if they go to Magna Leader, Magna Leader.co, not com, .co, /reviewer with a capital R -1, reviewer -1, they will be able to get a free copy of the Ready, Set, Get Hired book. And if you see something in the book that resonates with you, like I said, all the scripts and the process and everything is very prescriptive. It'll tell you how to get started, how to make those connections, how to look for job opportunities. Great. And we have an automated method to do that. So in our automated method, typically we can get anywhere between, 50 to 100 contacts a week, executive contacts a week through LinkedIn. So if you don't want to do it manually, there's a way to do it automated. Just give me a call. I'll be glad to walk you through that process.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for providing that resource. Obviously, we discussed the book earlier, and all of it, I'm sure it is, full of insight, especially like we said. Now I'm turning into a broken record talking about the job market today, but for anyone listening, again, a great resource. So head over to that site and get it while it lasts. So Kevin, again, thank you so much for being here, for providing your insight. Congratulations on all the success, taking that leap of faith, and everything that the book has done for you and for your company.
It's been my pleasure, John.
Thank you.